In this week's video, I have finally returned to Iceland and we have just spent a week on the road. I'm here with Sophie and I'm trying to cross out some of the different visions that I've collected over the years here in Iceland. So in this video, you will hopefully see a whole lot of original photos that you haven't seen before. We also visited the volcano. I flew the drone above all sorts of different epic locations. One of the many locations I've wanted to visit over the years is this beautiful waterfall right here behind me. But first, Puffins. So we have now arrived here at Dyrhólaey, and I actually visited this place all the way back in 2016. And from there I made my 8th video on my YouTube channel, so that's way long ago. Tonight we are here to photograph the small, cute puffins. So when I'm photographing the puffins here and it's sunset, yet it is super cloudy, it's very dark, it's very moody, I really have to up the ISO quite a lot. Like we are saying ISO 1600, ISO 3200. And then I have to open up the aperture to get a fast enough shutter speed to capture the puffins. Now, as you can see here in the background, luckily they are not particularly shy, so I can get a little bit closer than at 400mm. But to get the portrait, 400mm. If you want to include a little bit more of the landscape, which I actually prefer to do, I like the puffin portrait, they're super cute, but it is nice to be right here and have the beautiful sea stacks, Reynistrangar in the background. Because I don't want to have Reynistrangar completely out of focus. They will be out of focus, but not completely. I have to stop down to like f10, f11, and that gives me a shutter speed of like 1/20th, 1/30th of a second. So I definitely have to put on image stabilization, and then I need to be fast when the puffins are standing still, which basically translates to just hammering off as many photos as I can and then select the best when I come back home. So right now I'm trying to compose different kinds of photos where I have the puffins in the foreground and Reynistrangar in the background. I'm also trying to capture a few different photos where I have some grass in the foreground and then a puffin and then maybe a background, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm playing around here and it's really just about trying to compose the photo in a way that looks aesthetically pleasing. Actually, the first part of this trip with Sophie was to head to the, at that time, active volcano. We went there on the very first evening after Nigel Danson, James Popsis and I arrived in Iceland after our 2-week trip to Svalbard and Greenland. James decided to stay back in Keflavik and photograph trash bins, but after having picked up Sophie in the airport, Nigel, Sophie and I headed to the volcano and were joined by a couple of friends, Sam and Travis. The absolute best part of this entire night was seeing Sophie's and Nigel's face when they first saw the volcano. Just like myself last year, I could see they got that mind-blowing and existential surprise that you only encounter very few times in life. I know that anyone who've been at the volcano in 2021, 2022 or 2023 know exactly what I'm talking about. This year's crater was gorgeous, and the day we arrived we had some beautiful small lava falls, but sadly not a big flowing river. My goal was generally to use the drone to get some dramatic and obviously epic photos. Using the Mavic 3 Pro, I could use the 3x zoom camera from a safe distance this year without melting the drone, but like Nigel I also struggled quite a lot with focusing. It seems we were not the only ones to have problems with the Mavic 3 in this regard, and many of my photos from the main camera and the 3x zoom camera are slightly out of focus. We both had issues with those cameras catching focus in both video and photo mode. Luckily, a decent selection of the photos was in focus and most of the best video content were too. We also spend a lot of time just witnessing the wonder of nature an active volcano like this is. The lava is just so hypnotizing. Besides some straight down and close-ups, and of course also some photos from the ground with the Sony a7R5 in combination with the Tamron 50-400, the only lens I used all night, the main photo I wanted was a couple's photo of Sophie and I on the side of the small mountain silhouetted against the glowing lava. So these are the kind of memories you want to preserve. So thank you so much to SAAL Digital for sponsoring this week's video. If you want to save 50% on any purchase from SAAL Digital, that can be several $100s, be sure to use the link in the description of the video. But as I mentioned, this here, like, wow, what a print. This right here is a metal print, as I said, from SAAL Digital, and I have put it in a black frame. It looks so cool. And can you believe that such a big print has come out of the 7x zoom camera on the DJI Mavic 3 Pro? The photo is actually only 8.5 megapixels, and everything considering, it's actually really good. High quality. Like, I did fear that the print would suffer a little bit because it was of such a low quality photo, but this looks so good. Yes, of course it's not super tack sharp. Well, it is tack sharp, but you can definitely see that it is only 8.5 megapixels. I actually also got this photo here made, and you can see it's a little bit higher quality. This is actually 60 megapixels. And this one here is without a frame, so you can see the difference. But these metal prints from SAAL Digital are absolutely stunning. If you want to have a metal print like this yourself, be sure to benefit from the link in the description of this video and get 50% off on any product from SAAL Digital. I'm also going to show this photo a little bit later in this video. Before starting the long and very demanding hike back, we ended our volcano visit with silhouette photos from the ground. It was great fun, and I also got some really epic video of Sophie. No, that was not planned. So we have now arrived to the infamous Instagram cave here in Iceland. I think in a little bit of despise of a cave like this, I have avoided it all those years, but now I just wanted to check it out. And just like my photo from Lago de Brai down in the Dolomites, I actually think this may end up being a photo that I actually like. So there you go. Like, don't think that you should not go to locations just because other people have been there or it's a famous location. It actually looks really nice. So we have the view here towards Dyrhólaey in the background and all the way out here in Vik. And it's actually a surprisingly big cave. I'll have to put on the wide angle lens 16mm. And then I have Sophie standing down here. So it's actually a way bigger scene that I have seen from all the different Instagram photos where the person in the foreground is actually very close to the camera. Here I can actually make a small person so it looks bigger, and that is what I like. It's quite dark in the cave, so I have to underexpose a little bit to expose for the highlights. So I'm exposing to the right, but I'm exposing so that I'm not clipping the highlights, which means that the cave will be relatively dark. So I will bracket the photo. However, I'm actually not sure that I will need the bracketed photo. I just have to move a little bit back here in the cave where Sophie's standing, basically wall hocking, and that is enough to have the cave entrance at 16 millimeter. And then because Sophie's in the foreground, I'm trying to capture it when the wind catches her hair. It looks quite nice with long hair and the wind blowing. As this was my first trip to Iceland since 2019, that wasn't a workshop. I had, as mentioned, a whole list of things I wanted to do. Flying the drone at different locations was among them, and over the years I've had my eyes on this particular rock formation that I wanted to photograph with a drone. I also got to explore some new Glacier River locations that I've added to my Iceland landscape photography map. There is of course a link in the description to that one. This specific Glacier River was particularly beautiful with the blue and yellow colors. It really is like flying above an abstract painting. So right now we are hiking on our way up to a beautiful, beautiful canyon. But wow, it's hard. You know, as you've just seen all my previous videos from Svalbard, Jan Mayen and Greenland, we've been on a boat for 2 weeks. That's not good for your stamina. Anyway, we're hiking up to a beautiful canyon that I first visited back 2019, I think, but that was like in February, and I traversed this hike in big wellies and 1/2 meter of snow. It is a little bit easier today. You learn to appreciate when there's no snow. So we have now come up to the top, and obviously, literally 30 seconds after we arrived, low-hanging clouds started to come in and cover up the mountaintop. Luckily, I had my camera ready, and with all my compositional skills, I just pointed it straight on my subject and hammered it off and got a couple of photos where I can still see a little bit of the mountaintop. So really, this composition is fairly simple. As you can see here, I have set up my camera in case the clouds will come out, but it is basically straight on. We have the waterfall here and the river, and then the mountaintop should be around here, but obviously you can't see it now. For now, I have composed something like this here. However, I did get one just before where you can see the mountaintop. You can see it there. So if the mountaintop doesn't show, I have that one. And this here is just how it is sometimes. You have to work fast, you have to cover your butt. Like, I know that there's a chance that low-hanging clouds could come in this area, even though we've been seeing this mountaintop all the time, so we have to work fast. And the best way to work fast is to know your composition. So if you want to learn more about composition, be sure to get my 2 ebooks on exactly that topic. They are super easy to read, they have loads of examples. It's all about internalizing how to actually compose a photo fast so you get the shot. There are links to both the ebooks down in the description of this video. So we really ended up in a wind tunnel right here, but I've come to a glacier that I haven't really visited before here in Iceland. And I'm definitely going to use the long lens to zoom in, and then I have Sophie out here who will go on this edge right there. And as you can see, this is really, really cool. So on with the long lens, the Tamron 50 to 400, I'm going to zoom in, and that will hopefully give a pretty cool photo. I'm going to stop down the aperture a little bit because I want to have both her and the glacier in focus. So it is actually quite an epic photo right here, and I really like it with the glacier there in the background and the light coming out from underneath the clouds further up. However, I did get a shot yesterday at another glacier that I think is a little bit better, that I actually also really like, and you can see that one here. However, if we want something truly epic, then I need to use the drone. Be aware that flying drones in Vatnajökull National Park is not allowed, but you can obtain a permit to flying inside the park from the park's website if you want to. I just stayed outside the borders of the park and looked in, at least according to the national park's own map and the UNESCO Heritage Site map. Another glacier I've wanted to photograph for years is this one. As I used the 3x zoom camera, I could stay just outside the park but still make a massive 103 megapixel panorama. Making panoramas is the easiest way to up the image quality of the 3x and 7x zoom cameras. So after 8 years, I have finally reached this waterfall. It has actually been on my plan to visit ever since before I visited Iceland for the first time as a photographer all the way back in 2015. I just never got around to visit it back then. And now, finally out in the middle of nowhere, you can probably not get further from Reykjavik here in Iceland than more or less here. There is, if you drive to the ring road, 8 hours whether you're driving north or south back to Reykjavik. However, now that I'm finally here, it is fun to really work this scene. There's no doubt that I have a completely other approach to photographing a waterfall like this than I had 8 years ago. I have Sophie with me, so she has walked up into the waterfall and she's now standing in front of one of these cascades. We have tried to see if she can come to some of the other cascades, but this one here was the one that was the safest. We are not taking any chances in regard to slipping down a rock or something like that. This one here is the one we're going to use. So from a compositional standpoint, I've come a little bit back from the waterfall. I'll also try to get closer, but I think this one here is my primary photo. As you can see, I have the road just up here and I've come a little bit off the road, so I can have this here as an immediate foreground. It actually works really nice to just throw that out of focus. And then of course just have the cascades. It's a little bit annoying with this part of the sky because I will have to include it in my composition. And you can see the composition is something like this here. You can also see I'm using ISO 320, underexposing a little bit, f8, and that gives me a shutter speed of 1/400th of a second. However, I am also bracketing to capture the sky, and then I get different kinds of shutter speeds in the waterfall. So I'm trying both with ISO 100 and with ISO 320. And shooting it at various shutter speeds give me a lot of different data, a lot of different options to work with in post-processing. And obviously, if you want to learn much more about post-processing, be sure to enroll in my Photoshop for Landscape Photographers post-processing course. I've designed the course so it's easy to get started by introducing you to the programs. And then I have a section of tools where I'm showing you many different ways that you can create glow and atmosphere. You can dodge and burn. You can blend photos both with luminosity masks and classic HDR. You can focus stack, you can focal length blend, how to clean your photos properly. So many different things, and I've just updated it with videos that cover some of the new features in Photoshop. Then there's also 11 start to finish tutorials that you can dig into and learn a lot from. There is a link and a coupon code to get a little bit off down in the description of the video. Throughout this entire trip around Iceland, we came by so many small, beautiful and intimate scenes with cotton grass. On our second to last day, we were driving through a big bank of fog and just had to stop and photograph these small ponds surrounded by cotton grass. I just love the minimalism and atmosphere of the scene with no visible horizon. Just calm and beautiful. And yes, I did pick up that trash and found a bin to throw it out. Be sure to check out the links in the description of the video if you want to learn even more about composition or editing, and be sure to use the opportunity to get 50% off on any SAAL Digital products. As mentioned, there are links to everything down in the description of the video.